The airlock hissed, spitting Illy Vance into the chaos of Zerathia's orbital station, where alien eyes gleamed with secrets and danger. His heart raced as he faced the plasma conduit, a ticking bomb that could burn the station to ash. Then she appeared, Zara, a Zerathian with silver-white hair and a fur-like suit that clung to her curves like a second skin, her violet eyes promising something wild, forbidden. "Illy Vance," she purred, her voice a velvet caress. "Are you ready to touch the stars?" In 30 seconds, the universe would never be the same. The airlock hissed like a serpent, spitting Illy Vance into the chaos of Zerathia's orbital station with all the grace of a meteor strike. His boots clanged against the grated floor, the sound swallowed by the hum of alien machinery and the chatter of a dozen species haggling in the commerce bay. 3 months aboard this floating bazaar of diplomats, traders, and mercenaries, and Illy still felt like a fish flopping in a desert. He adjusted the straps of his repair kit, the weight grounding him as he scanned the work order flickering on his wrist comm. The job was simple: fix a plasma conduit in Sector 7, a critical artery for the station's power grid. The catch? He'd be paired with an alien tech from Zerathia's engineering guild, some hotshot named Zara. "Great," he muttered, dodging a hovering drone that nearly clipped his head. Another babysitting gig. Illy wasn't here for diplomacy or to make friends with bug-eyed traders or crystalline merchants. He was a human, a grease-stained engineer from Earth's outer colonies, hired for one thing: keeping this cosmic circus running. But the Zerathians had a reputation, otherworldly beauty, minds sharp as plasma blades, and a knack for turning routine jobs into galactic dramas. Illy had heard the stories. Humans were a curiosity here, their stubborn grit and knack for improvisation making them legends or lunatics, depending on who you asked. He didn't care for the spotlight, he just wanted to fix the damn conduit and clock out. The corridor to Sector 7 was a maze of glowing panels and alien script that shimmered like liquid starlight. Illy's boots echoed in the quiet, the station's artificial gravity tugging just a bit lighter than Earth's. He reached the maintenance bay, a cavernous space cluttered with tools and sparking consoles. The plasma conduit loomed in the corner, a massive tube pulsing with barely contained energy. One wrong move and it could fry half the station. Illy cracked his knuckles, ready to dive in, when the bay door slid open with a whisper. He didn't turn at first, assuming it was just another tech. "You're late," he called, his voice sharp as he crouched to inspect the conduit's access panel. "Work was scheduled for 0900. It's 0915. Let's not waste my time." Silence answered him, but not the empty kind. It was heavy, charged like the air before a storm. Then came a voice, soft and melodic, curling around his name like a caress. "You are Illy Vance, yes." Illy froze, his hand halfway to a wrench. He turned, and the sight hit him like a rogue asteroid. Standing in the doorway was Zara, the Zerathian tech. Her hair was a cascade of silver white, shimmering under the bay's harsh lights, framing a face that could have been carved from moonlight. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, with a faint glow that seemed to pulse in time with the station's hum. Small, pointed ears peeked through her hair, delicate as a forest sprite's, and her body, God help him, was wrapped in a form-fitting suit of sleek, fur-like material that left little to the imagination. Every curve was a dare, every movement a promise. Illy's mouth went dry, his brain scrambling to reboot. "I am Zara of the Third Harmonic," she said, stepping closer. Her eyes, a deep violet, locked onto his with an intensity that made his pulse spike. "Your partner for this assignment." "Partner?" Illy managed, his voice rougher than he intended. He stood, brushing his hands on his jumpsuit, trying to regain control. "Look, I don't do partners. I do the job, I do it right, and I move on. Command thinks I need a local guide, fine, but don't expect me to hold your hand." Zara tilted her head, a faint smile playing on her lips. "Hand-holding is not required, Illy Vance, but your expertise is intriguing. Humans are known for their unconventional methods." Her voice had a rhythm, almost hypnotic, and the way she said his name made his skin prickle in ways he didn't want to analyze. "Unconventional?" he snorted, turning back to the conduit to hide the heat creeping up his neck. "Lady, I fix things. Nothing fancy about it. Now let's get to work before this thing blows us all to stardust." The plasma conduit was a mess, its energy readings flickering like a dying star. Illy pulled up the diagnostic on his wrist comm, cursing under his breath. The containment field was unstable, leaking plasma at a rate that could trigger a cascade failure. If they didn't stabilize it soon, the station's power grid would collapse, leaving thousands stranded in the void. Zara moved to his side, her movements fluid, almost predatory. She tapped a panel on her own device, a sleek, glowing orb that projected holographic data in the air. "The conduit's matrix is misaligned," she said, her fingers dancing through the holograms. "Your human tools may not detect the harmonic dissonance." "Harmonic what now?" Illy shot her a sideways glance, trying not to notice how close she was standing. Her scent, something warm and spiced, like cinnamon and starlight, hit him like a punch. "Focus," he told himself. "Speak plain English. What's the problem?" Zara's smile widened as if she enjoyed his bluntness. "The conduit is singing out of tune. It requires recalibration to restore its balance. I can assist, but it will require us to work closely." Illy raised an eyebrow, unsure if she was talking about engineering or something else entirely. "Close, huh? How close we talking?" Her violet eyes sparkled with mischief. "Close enough to feel the rhythm of the machine, Illy Vance. Close enough to understand its heart." He swallowed hard, his mind racing. This wasn't just a repair job anymore. Something about Zara, her voice, her presence, the way she seemed to see right through him, felt like stepping into a gravity well with no way out. And yet, part of him didn't want to escape. "All right," he said, forcing his voice steady. "Show me how you Zerathians do it, but if this goes south, don't blame me when we're floating in pieces." Zara laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a summer breeze, and gestured to the conduit. "Follow my lead, human. This will be educational." As they began, Illy couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just stepped into something bigger than a busted conduit. The station hummed around them, a living beast of metal and energy, and Zara's presence was a spark that could either light the way or burn everything down. He wasn't sure which, but damn if he wasn't curious to find out. The work was intense, the conduit's energy pulsing like a living thing. Illy's tools clashed with Zara's alien tech, their methods a chaotic dance of human grit and Zerathian finesse. She guided his hands to adjust the containment field, her touch cool and electric, sending shivers down his spine. "Focus," she murmured, her breath warm against his ear. "The conduit responds to intent as much as technique." "Intent?" Illy grunted, wrestling with a stubborn coupling. "It's a machine, not a poetry reading." "Everything has a soul, Illy Vance," she replied, her voice soft but firm. "Even machines, especially here." He didn't know what to make of that, but as they worked, the conduit's hum began to stabilize, its wild energy settling into a steady rhythm. Zara's holographic orb pulsed in sync, and for a moment, Illy swore he felt the station itself breathe. "Not bad," he admitted, wiping sweat from his brow. "You're not half bad for an alien." "And you," Zara said, stepping closer, her eyes locked on his, "are more than you seem, human. I look forward to discovering all of you." Illy's heart thudded, caught between irritation and something dangerously close to fascination. This was no ordinary job, and Zara was no ordinary tech. As the conduit hummed steadily, the bay's lights flickered, casting her in a glow that made her look like a goddess from some forgotten myth. Whatever came next, Illy knew one thing for sure: he was in way over his head. The maintenance bay's lights flickered again, casting fleeting shadows across Zara's silver-white hair as she leaned over the plasma conduit, her holographic orb pulsing in rhythm with the machine's unsteady hum. Illy Vance stood inches away, his hands steady on the calibration tools, but his mind was anything but. Her scent, cinnamon and starlight, an impossible blend that shouldn't exist in the sterile confines of a space station, clung to the air, tugging at his focus like a rogue gravitational pull. He'd worked on failing reactors, dodged plasma leaks, and even faced down a rogue AI once, but nothing had prepared him for the way Zara's presence turned a routine repair into a high-stakes dance. The conduit's energy readings were stabilizing, but the tension between them was anything but stable. It was a live wire, sparking with every glance, every brush of her cool fingers against his. "Illy Vance," she said, her voice a low melody that seemed to vibrate through the metal floor, "your heart rate is elevated. Is this typical for humans under stress?" Her violet eyes flicked up to meet his, a teasing glint dancing in their depths. She wasn't just reading the conduit's diagnostics anymore, she was reading him asterisk. He snorted, trying to mask the heat creeping up his neck. "Lady, you're standing close enough to make a saint sweat. It's not the conduit doing that." He tightened his grip on the wrench, forcing his attention back to the panel. The conduit's containment field was holding, for now, but the readings on his wristcom showed micro-fluctuations that could spiral into a full-blown failure if they didn't act fast. "Focus, Zara. We've got maybe 30 minutes before this thing decides to fry us or the whole station." Her lips curved into a smile, slow and deliberate, like she was savoring a secret. "Oh, I am focused, Illy, very much so." She adjusted her holographic orb, and the air shimmered with a cascade of alien symbols, their glow reflecting off her translucent skin. The fur-like suit she wore clung to her curves, its sleek texture catching the light in ways that made Ellie's brain stutter. He shook his head, cursing himself. 3 months on this station, surrounded by recycled air and alien politics, and now he was losing it over a Zerathian tech who probably didn't even know what flirting was. Or did she? Zara leaned closer, her shoulder brushing his as she pointed to a flickering symbol on her orb. "This harmonic node is destabilizing," she said, her breath warm against his cheek. "It requires a precise adjustment, one that human hands are uniquely suited for." Her fingers grazed his wrist, guiding his hand to a control panel. The touch was electric, not just because of the faint static from her suit, but because of the way it sent a jolt through his entire body. He froze, caught between the urge to pull away and the inexplicable desire to lean into her. "Human hands, huh?" He managed, his voice rougher than he meant. "What's so special about them?" He followed her guidance, adjusting the panel's settings, but his eyes kept drifting to her face, those sharp, elfin ears peeking through her hair, the way her violet eyes seemed to see right through him. Zara tilted her head, her smile turning playful. "Your species has tactile intuition. You feel the machine, yes, you sense its rhythm, even without understanding its song." She paused, her gaze lingering on his hands, then traveling up to his face. "It is compelling." Ellie's pulse kicked up another notch, and he was pretty sure it wasn't the conduit's fault this time. "Compelling?" he echoed, half laughing. "That's a new one. Most folks just call me stubborn." He finished the adjustment, and the conduit's hum smoothed out, a low, steady thrum that felt like a small victory. But the victory was short-lived. His wristcom beeped, flashing a warning, *secondary containment breach detected. Cascade failure imminent. Evacuate Sector 7. Damn it, Illy muttered, his stomach dropping. He grabbed his scanner, confirming the readings. The conduit wasn't just unstable, it was about to rupture, spewing plasma that could incinerate the bay and half the station with it. "Zara, we need to seal this now, or we're toast." She didn't flinch. Instead, she moved to the conduit's core interface, her fingers dancing across the holographic controls with a grace that made Ellie's clumsy human tech look like a child's toy. "There is another way," she said, her voice calm but laced with an edge that made his skin prickle. "But it requires intimacy with the system." Intimacy. Ellie raised an eyebrow, trying to ignore the way her words sent his mind to places it had no business going. "You gonna sweet-talk the conduit into behaving?" Her laugh was soft, like a ripple across a quiet lake. "Not quite, Ellie Vance. The Zerathian interface responds to bioelectric signals, your pulse, your breath, your intent." She stepped closer, so close he could feel the warmth radiating from her skin, even through her suit. "If we synchronize our signals, we can stabilize the conduit, but it will require you to trust me." He stared at her, his mind racing. Trust an alien he'd just met? An alien whose every move made his blood hum like a live circuit? But the scanner's warnings were relentless, and the conduit's hum was growing erratic, a low growl that promised disaster. "Fine," he said, his jaw tight. "What do I do?" Zara's eyes gleamed, and she reached for his hand, her touch firm but gentle. "Place your hand here," she said, guiding him to a smooth, glowing panel on the conduit's core. Her fingers lingered over his, her suit's faint luminescence pulsing in time with his heartbeat. "Now, breathe with me. Feel the machine. Let it feel you." Ellie's first instinct was to laugh. This was starting to sound like some cosmic yoga session, but the urgency in her voice and the escalating alarms silenced him. He took a deep breath, matching her rhythm, and something strange happened. The panel under his hand warmed, its glow shifting to match the cadence of his pulse. Zara's holographic orb flared brighter, and the air around them seemed to hum, not just with the conduit's energy, but with something deeper, something alive. "Focus on me," Zara whispered, her voice slipping into his mind like a warm current. She stepped closer, her body almost pressed against his, the fur-like suit brushing his arm. "Your energy is strong. Illy, chaotic but strong. Let it flow through you." He tried to focus, but her proximity was a distraction all its own. Her scent enveloped him, her eyes held him captive, and the way her suit's patterns seemed to dance with his heartbeat was doing things to his concentration he didn't want to admit. "This is insane," he muttered, but he didn't pull away. The panel's glow intensified, and the conduit's growl softened, its energy stabilizing under their combined touch. They worked in silence, their breaths synchronized, their hands moving as one. The bay's alarms quieted, replaced by a steady hum that felt almost peaceful. Illy glanced at Zara, her face lit by the soft glow of the conduit, and for a moment he swore he saw something in her eyes, something that wasn't just professional focus. It was hunger, curiosity, maybe even desire. The thought sent a shiver down his spine, and he wasn't sure if it was fear or something else entirely. Then, without warning, the conduit let out a sharp, keening wail. The panel under Ali's hand flared red, and his wrist comm screamed, * critical overload detected. Containment failure in 90 seconds. * the bay shook, tools rattling off shelves, and a low rumble echoed through the station's hull. Ali's heart sank. They'd stabilized the primary field, but something deeper in the system was unraveling, a hidden flaw, a ghost in the machine. Zara, what the hell's happening? He demanded, yanking his hand back. The panel's glow flickered wildly, and the air grew thick with the acrid scent of overheating circuits. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she pressed both hands to the conduit, her suit's patterns flaring like a supernova. The core is resisting, she said, her voice strained. It is not a mechanical fault, it is aware. Aware? Ali's eyes widened. You're telling me this thing's alive? Not alive as you understand it, she said, her gaze locked on the conduit. But it senses us. It senses *U*. Your human energy is disrupting its harmony. She turned to him, her expression a mix of urgency and something dangerously close to fascination. We must go deeper, Ali, into the core itself, but it will be dangerous, and it will bind us in ways you may not be ready for. He stared at her, the bay trembling around them, the conduit's wail growing louder. Bind them? What did that even mean? Every instinct screamed at him to run, to evac the sector and let the Zerathians deal with their own damn tech. But the way Zara looked at him, like he was the key to something far bigger than a busted conduit, held him in place. Her hand reached for his again, her touch a lifeline in the chaos. Ali Vance, she said, her voice soft but unyielding, will you follow me into the unknown? His throat tightened, his mind a tangle of fear, adrenaline, and something he couldn't name. The station was seconds from disaster, and Zara was a mystery wrapped in starlight, pulling him toward a precipice he wasn't sure he could cross. But as the conduit's wail reached a fever pitch, he knew he didn't have a choice. He nodded, his voice barely a whisper. Let's do this. Zara's smile was radiant, dangerous, and utterly captivating. She pulled him closer, her suit's glow enveloping them both, and together, they stepped toward the heart of the conduit, into a storm of energy and secrets that would change everything. The plasma conduit's wail crescendoed into a scream, a banshee's cry that shook the maintenance bay and sent sparks cascading from the overhead panels. Ali Vance clung to Zara's hand, her grip an anchor as the station trembled around them. The air was thick with the ozone tang of failing circuits, and the conduit's core, a massive, pulsating column of energy, glowed with an otherworldly light that seemed to pulse in time with his racing heart. Zara's suit, that sleek, fur-like marvel of Zerathian tech, blazed with luminescent patterns, their rhythm matching the chaotic energy of the conduit. Her violet eyes locked onto his, fierce and unyielding, as she pulled him toward a narrow access hatch at the conduit's base. Stay with me, Ali Vance, she said, her voice cutting through the cacophony like a blade. The core awaits. Ali's breath hitched, not just from the imminent threat of the conduit's collapse, but from the way her words wrapped around him, pulling him into her orbit. The hatch loomed ahead, a dark maw barely wide enough for one person, let alone two. He hesitated, his engineer's instincts screaming that diving into the heart of a failing plasma system was suicide. But Zara's touch, cool and electric, silenced the doubts. You said it's aware, he shouted over the roar of the conduit. What the hell does that mean? Is this thing gonna eat us? Her laugh was wild, a cascade of notes that somehow steadied him. Not eat, Ali, communicate. The conduit is more than a machine, it is a nexus of Zerathian biotech, woven with the essence of our world. It senses your human chaos, your passion. She stepped closer, her body brushing against his in the cramped space, her suit's glow casting fleeting shadows across his face. We must speak to it together. Speak to it? Ali's voice cracked, half from disbelief, half from the way her proximity sent his nerves into overdrive. The bay shook again, a violent tremor that knocked a wrench from a nearby shelf, clattering to the floor. His wrist comm flashed a dire warning, * containment failure in 60 seconds. * Zara, we don't have time for this mystic crap. We need to shut it down. No shutdown, she said, her tone fierce as she yanked open the hatch. A rush of warm, humming air spilled out, carrying a strange, metallic scent that made Ali's skin prickle. A shutdown will destroy the station. We must harmonize with the core, or it will reject us both. Before he could argue, she slipped through the hatch, her lithe form disappearing into the glowing darkness. Her voice echoed back, sharp and commanding. Follow me, Ali, now. He cursed under his breath, his heart pounding as he squeezed through the hatch after her. The passage was tight, the walls pulsing with veins of light that seemed alive, writhing like tendrils of some cosmic creature. Zara moved ahead, her suit's patterns flaring brighter, illuminating the tunnel in a kaleidoscope of colors. Ellie's boots scraped against the smooth, almost organic surface, and he couldn't shake the feeling that the conduit was watching him, its energy probing his every step. "This is insane," he muttered, but he kept moving, driven by the pull of Zara's presence and the ticking clock of impending disaster. The tunnel opened into a small, spherical chamber at the conduit's core, its walls lined with glowing panels that pulsed like a heartbeat. At the center stood a crystalline structure, a lattice of light and energy that hummed with a power that made Ellie's teeth ache. Zara stood before it, her hands outstretched, her suit's patterns weaving into the crystal's glow like threads in a tapestry. "This is the heart," she said, her voice reverent, almost worshipful. "The nexus of Zerathia's will. It is confused by you." Confused? Ellie stepped closer, his scanner useless in the face of this alien tech. The air was thick, heavy with a strange electricity that made his hair stand on end. "Lady, I'm the one confused here. How do we fix this?" "We don't fix," Zara said, turning to face him. Her eyes burned with an intensity that stopped him cold, her silver-white hair floating slightly, as if caught in an unseen current. "We merge. The Nexus requires a bond, a union of intent. Your human spirit, your chaos, it disrupts the harmony, but it can also save it." She stepped toward him, closing the distance until their breaths mingled, her scent overwhelming, like a spice market under a starry sky. "Will you give yourself to it, Ellie Vance?" "Me?" His mouth went dry, his mind a whirlwind of fear, adrenaline, and something dangerously close to desire. The chamber shook, the crystal's glow flaring erratically, and his wristcom screamed, *30 seconds to cascade failure. *give myself? He rasped, his voice rough with the weight of her words. "Zara, I don't even know what you're asking." She reached for him, her hands cupping his face, her touch cool yet searing. "Your essence, Ellie, your will, your heart." Her fingers traced his jaw, and the patterns on her suit pulsed faster, syncing with the crystal's rhythm. "The Nexus needs both of us, human and Zerathian, chaos and harmony. Together we can calm it." Ellie's heart thundered, caught between the insanity of her words and the undeniable pull of her touch. The chamber's walls seemed to close in, the crystal's light growing blinding, and he felt it. A presence, not just in the machine but in her, in the space between them. It was as if the Nexus was alive, reaching for him, testing him. And Zara was the bridge, her violet eyes a gateway to something he couldn't comprehend but couldn't resist. "All right," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Let's do it. Whatever this is, I'm in." Her smile was radiant, a supernova in the dim chamber, and she pulled him closer, her hands guiding his to the crystal's surface. The moment his fingers touched it, a jolt surged through him, like lightning coursing through his veins. His vision blurred, colors exploding behind his eyes, crimson, violet, starwhite. He felt Zara's presence not just beside him but inside him, her thoughts brushing against his like a whisper of silk. The Nexus hummed, its energy wrapping around them, binding them in a dance of light and sound. "Focus on me," Zara murmured, her voice echoing in his mind as much as his ears. Her hands pressed against his chest, her suit's glow merging with the crystal's light. "Feel the Nexus. Feel *us*. Ellie tried, but it was overwhelming. The Nexus wasn't just a machine, it was a storm, a living entity that pulsed with emotions he couldn't name. Fear, anger, curiosity, it flooded through him, amplified by Zara's touch. He saw flashes of her world, Zerathia's glowing forests, cities of crystal and light, a people who wove their lives into the rhythm of their tech. And he saw himself through her eyes, a human, raw and unpolished, yet burning with a fire that fascinated her. The chamber shook violently, the crystal's light flaring to a blinding peak. Ellie's knees buckled, but Zara held him steady, her strength surprising in her delicate frame. "Stay with me," she said, her voice a lifeline. "We are almost there." Then, without warning, the Nexus spoke asterisk, not in words, but in a surge of images and emotions that slammed into Ellie's mind. He saw the station, its systems failing, its people screaming in the void. He saw Zara, her suit's patterns flaring as she poured herself into the Nexus. And he saw himself, not as an engineer but as something more, a catalyst, a spark that could either save or destroy. The Nexus was testing them, demanding a sacrifice, a union that went beyond flesh and bone. "Zara," Ellie gasped, his voice raw as the Nexus's energy tore through him. "What's it want?" "Us," she said, her eyes wide with awe and fear. "It wants us to become one with it, to bind our essences to its core." Her hands tightened on his, her suit's glow now a blazing halo around them. "But if we fail, it will consume us both." The chamber roared, the crystal's light fracturing into shards that cut through the air. Illy's mind reeled, caught in the Nexus's grip, but Zara's presence anchored him. He felt her strength, her curiosity, her inexplicable need to understand him. And in that moment, he knew he couldn't let her face this alone. Human or alien, engineer or enigma, they were in this together. With a shout, Illy poured everything into the Nexus. His fear, his stubbornness, his inexplicable trust in the woman beside him. The crystal flared, its scream rising to a deafening pitch, then silence. The light dimmed, the chamber stilled, and the Nexus's hum settled into a soft, steady rhythm. Illy's chest heaved, his body trembling from the effort, but the wrist-comm was silent. The cascade failure was gone. He looked at Zara, her face lit by the crystal's gentle glow, her eyes wide with something that looked like wonder. "We did it," she whispered, her voice trembling. "We harmonized." Illy tried to speak, but his throat was too tight. The Nexus's energy still lingered in him, a faint echo of Zara's presence, like a melody he couldn't shake. He realized with a jolt that something had changed, not just in the conduit, but in him, in them. Before he could process it, a low rumble shook the chamber, different from before. The crystal pulsed once, twice, then erupted in a burst of light that formed a single, shimmering word in the air, *bound. Zara's breath caught, her hand still clutching his. "Illy Vance," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "What have we done?" He stared at the word, his heart pounding, the weight of it sinking in. Bound to the Nexus, to her. The station was safe, but they had crossed a line, and there was no going back. The word *bound* hung in the air, a shimmering hologram that pulsed like a heartbeat in the dim glow of the conduit's core chamber. Illy Vance stared at it, his chest tight, his hand still clasped in Zara's, her cool fingers anchoring him to reality, or whatever passed for reality in this alien heart of Zerathian tech. The Nexus's hum had softened to a low, almost soothing thrum, but the weight of what they'd done pressed down on him like a collapsing star. Bound, to a machine, to her. His mind spun, caught between the thrill of their victory and the dawning realization that they'd just stepped into something far bigger than a busted plasma conduit. Zara's violet eyes, wide with a mix of awe and uncertainty, mirrored his own confusion, but there was something else there too, a spark of mischief that made his stomach do a flip. "Bound?" Illy rasped, his voice rough from the Nexus's lingering energy. He pulled his hand back, breaking the connection, but the warmth of her touch lingered like a ghost. "Zara, what the hell does that mean? Did we just marry this thing?" He gestured at the crystal, its lattice glowing faintly, as if it were listening. Her laugh was a soft chime, cutting through the tension like a blade. "Marry? Oh, Illy Vance, your human metaphors are charmingly literal." She stepped closer, her fur-like suit catching the crystal's light, its patterns swirling in a way that made his head swim. "The Nexus has accepted us, our energies are intense. It is not marriage, but a partnership, a resonance." Her lips curved into a teasing smile. "Though I admit, the idea of marrying a human is intriguing." Illy's face burned, and he turned away, pretending to check his wrist-comm to hide the flush creeping up his neck. "Yeah, well, let's not get any wild ideas. I'm just trying to keep this station from turning into space confetti." His comm was silent, the earlier warnings gone, but the screen flickered with strange, unreadable symbols. Zerathian script, he guessed, though it looked like it was trying to tell him something. He tapped it, frowning. "This thing's acting weird. You didn't reprogram my gear when you were poking around in my head, did you?" Zara tilted her head, her silver-white hair spilling over one shoulder like liquid moonlight. "Poking around? Illy, I merely synchronized with you. Your mind is delightfully chaotic." She reached out, her fingers brushing his wrist-comm, and the screen flared briefly, the symbols shifting into a pattern that looked suspiciously like a heart. She pulled back, her eyes widening in mock innocence. "Oops, perhaps the Nexus is expressing itself." "Expressing itself?" Illy snorted, but his laugh was shaky. "Great, now I've got a lovesick machine messing with my tech. This day just keeps getting better." He ran a hand through his hair, trying to focus on the job, but the chamber's walls seemed to pulse with a life of their own, and Zara's presence, her scent, her voice, her damn everything was making it impossible to think straight. Before he could say more, the chamber's hatch hissed open behind them, and a sharp voice cut through the air. "Vance, what in the galaxy is going on in here?" It was Commander Kalia, the station's no-nonsense overseer, her silhouette framed in the hatchway. Her dark eyes narrowed as she took in the scene, Illy, sweaty and disheveled, standing way too close to Zara, whose suit was still glowing like a cosmic beacon. The alarm stopped, but the logs show a power surge that nearly fried the grid. "Care to explain why you're cozying up to an alien tech instead of evacuating?" Illy's stomach dropped. "Cozying up? Commander, we just saved the station." He gestured at the now stable crystal, his voice rising with indignation. This thing was about to blow, and Zara, the Zerathian operative, helped me stabilize it. You're welcome. Kalia's gaze flicked to Zara, who stood serenely, her hands clasped behind her back, the picture 1818 of calm. Operative Zara, is it? Your file says you're an engineer, not a miracle worker. What exactly did you two do to that Nexus? Her tone was sharp, but there was a glint of curiosity in her eyes, like she sensed there was more to the story. Zara inclined her head, her elfin ears twitching slightly. Commander, the Nexus required a harmonic alignment. Illy Vance's human resilience was instrumental. She glanced at Illy, her smile subtle but wicked. His energy is quite potent. Illy choked, his face going from hot to supernova. Potent? Can we not? Look, we fixed it, okay? Can we skip the interrogation and get back to work? He shifted uncomfortably, acutely aware of how close Zara was standing, her suit's patterns still pulsing in a way that felt far too personal. Kalia raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. Fixed it, huh? Then why is the station's AI reporting a new system signature in Sector 7? Something about a resonance bond that's got the techs in a panic. She crossed her arms, her gaze darting between them. You two wouldn't know anything about that, would you? Illy's mouth opened, then closed. He shot Zara a look, hoping she'd have some slick Zerathian explanation, but she just smiled, her violet eyes sparkling with amusement. The Nexus has integrated our bioelectric signatures, she said smoothly. It is a side effect of our collaboration, nothing to be concerned about. Side effect? Kalia's voice dripped with skepticism. Vance, I told you to fix a conduit, not rewrite the station's core programming with alien voodoo. Get to the control room and run a full diagnostic. Now. She turned to leave, then paused, throwing a pointed look over her shoulder. And try to keep your hands off each other long enough to do your jobs. Illy's jaw dropped, but before he could protest, Kalia was gone, hatch hissing shut behind her. He turned to Zara, his face a mix of exasperation and embarrassment. Did you asterisk here, asterisk that? She thinks we're, what, making out in here? Zara's laugh was a soft, musical ripple. Your commander is perceptive, Illy Vance, though she underestimates the complexity of our connection. She stepped closer, her fingers brushing his arm, sending a jolt through him that had nothing to do with the Nexus. Would it be so terrible, this making out you speak of? Illy's brain short-circuited. He took a step back, bumping into a control panel which beeped indignantly. Zara, you can't just look, we're not doing whatever this is, okay? We've got a job to do, and I'm not about to get written up for fraternizing with an alien. He paused, then added, no offense. None taken, she said, her smile undeterred. But the Nexus disagrees. It has claimed us, Illy, and it is curious about you. She gestured to the crystal, which pulsed once, as if in agreement. Illy's wristcom flickered again, displaying a new message in Zerathian script that, to his horror, translated to *human-alien interface, active. Synchronization level 87%, *87%. He yelped, shaking the comm like it might change its mind. What is this, a cosmic dating app? Zara, what did you do to me? She tilted her head, her expression a mix of amusement and curiosity. I did nothing, Illy Vance, the Nexus chose you. It finds your human chaos fascinating. She stepped closer, her suit's patterns flaring as she leaned in, her breath warm against his ear. As do I. Illy's heart did a backflip, and he was pretty sure the Nexus wasn't the only thing syncing with him. He took another step back, only to find himself pressed against the chamber's wall, nowhere left to go. Okay, timeout, said, holding up his hands. We need to figure out what this bond thing is before it turns us into some kind of space soap opera. Can you talk to this Nexus? Tell it to, I don't know, unbond us. Zara's eyes sparkled with mischief. Unbond? Oh, Illy, that would be unwise. The Nexus is stable because of us. If we sever the connection, the conduit could destabilize again. She paused, her gaze softening. Besides, is it so unpleasant being bound to me? He opened his mouth to retort, but the words died in his throat. The truth was, it wasn't unpleasant, not at all. Her presence was like a drug, pulling him in even as his better judgment screamed to run. And the Nexus, whatever it was, felt like it was watching, waiting, maybe even laughing at him. All right, he said finally, his voice low. Let's get to the control room and run that diagnostic. But if this thing starts sending me love notes, I'm out. Zara's laugh followed him as they climbed out of the chamber, the conduits hum a steady backdrop to the chaos in his head. The station's corridors were a blur of glowing panels and bustling aliens, but Illy barely noticed. His mind was on Zara, her touch, her scent, the way her suit seemed to pulse with his own heartbeat. And that damn word, *bound*, burned into his thoughts like a brand. As they reached the control room, a new alarm blared, sharp and urgent. The main console flashed red and a holographic display sprang to life, showing a map of the station with Sector 7 pulsing ominously. A tech, a wiry human named Milo, spun around, his face pale. "Vance, the conduit's stable, but something's accessing the station's core systems. It's like it's rewriting itself, and it's asking for *U**. Illy froze, his eyes darting to Zara. Her expression was unreadable, but her suit's patterns flared brighter, as if the Nexus itself was reaching out through her. "Asking for me?" he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Zara, what the hell have we gotten ourselves into?" She met his gaze, her smile both thrilling and terrifying. "Something extraordinary, Illy Vance, something human." The control room buzzed with frenetic energy, a hive of blinking consoles and harried techs scrambling to make sense of the station's rogue systems. The holographic display pulsed ominously, Sector 7 glowing marker throbbing like a heartbeat, and the words *request. Illy Vance * flickered across the screen in eerie, looping script. Illy stood frozen, his pulse racing as Milo's words echoed in his head. The Nexus was asking for him. Beside him, Zara remained a vision of calm, her silver-white hair catching the console's light, her fur-like suit shimmering with patterns that seemed to dance to an unseen rhythm. Her violet eyes met his, and the spark in them, part curiosity, part something dangerously intimate, sent a shiver down his spine that had nothing to do with the blaring alarms. "Asking for me?" Illy repeated, his voice a mix of disbelief and exasperation. He jabbed a finger at the display, as if it could argue back. "Zara, this thing's got my name on it like I'm its new best friend. What's it want? A thank you note for not blowing us up." He tried to keep his tone light, but the weight of their bond pressed against him, a tingling awareness that made every glance at Zara feel like a brush with live voltage. Her lips curved into a smile, subtle but charged, as she stepped closer, her presence filling the small space between them. "The Nexus is intrigued by you, Illy Vance," she said, her voice low and melodic, wrapping around his name like a caress. "Your human energy, your passion, your chaos, it resonates in ways our tech has never encountered." Her fingers brushed his arm, a fleeting touch that sent a jolt through him, her suit's patterns flaring briefly as if echoing his quickening pulse. "It wants to understand you, as do I." Illy's throat tightened, his body hyper-aware of her nearness. The control room's chaos faded to a dull hum, the other tech's voices blurring as his focus narrowed to Zara, her scent. Like spiced starlight, her elfin ears twitching slightly, the way her suit hugged every curve with an almost deliberate allure. He swallowed hard, forcing his eyes back to the console. "Yeah, well, it's gonna have to get in line," he muttered, tapping the screen to pull up the diagnostic logs. "We've got a station to save, not a therapy session to run." But the logs were a mess, a tangle of Zerathian code and erratic energy readings that made his head spin. The Nexus wasn't just stable, it was *evolving*, rewriting its own protocols in response to their earlier intervention. Milo, hovering nearby, looked like he was about to faint. "Vance, this isn't normal," he said, his voice high with panic. "The system's acting like it's alive. It's rerouting power, locking out overrides, and get this, it's syncing with your biosignature." "My what?" Illy's eyes widened, darting to Zara. "You said this bond thing was a side effect. Now it's got my biosignature on speed dial." Zara's expression was unreadable, but her suit's patterns pulsed faster, as if betraying her calm. "The Nexus has integrated us both, Illy," she said, her voice soft but urgent. "It is learning from you. Your human vitality is reshaping its core." She stepped closer, her hand resting on the console beside his, her fingers inches from his own. "We must guide it, or it will act on its own." "Guide it?" Illy laughed, a shaky sound that betrayed his nerves. "Zara, I'm an engineer, not a cosmic babysitter. How do we even?" His words cut off as the console flared, a wave of heat washing over them. The holographic display shifted, projecting a shimmering image of the Nexus's crystal core, its lattice pulsing with a rhythm that matched the thump of his heart. And then, impossibly, it spoke, not in words but in a low, resonant hum that vibrated through his bones, carrying a single, undeniable command: *connect. Illy's breath caught, his body tensing as the air grew heavy, charged with an energy that felt almost intimate. Zara's hand found his, her touch cool yet searing, and the Nexus's hum deepened, wrapping around them like a lover's embrace. "It wants us," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum. "It wants our connection, our unity." He stared at her, his mind racing. The control room's lights dimmed, the other techs fading into the background as the Nexus's presence filled the space. Zara's suit glowed brighter, its patterns weaving into the console's light, and Ellie felt it, a pull not just from the machine but from her, a magnetic force that made his skin tingle and his thoughts blur. "Unity?" he rasped, his voice rough with the effort to stay grounded. "Zara, this is getting way too weird." She stepped closer, closing the gap until their bodies were nearly touching, her violet eyes locking onto his with an intensity that made his heart stutter. "Weird, perhaps," she said, her lips curving into a smile that was both playful and provocative. "But also beautiful. The Nexus sees us as one, Ellie. It feels what we feel." Her hand slid up his arm, her touch sending sparks through him, and her suit's patterns pulsed in sync with his racing pulse. "Do you not feel it too?" Ellie's breath hitched, his body responding in ways he couldn't control. Her closeness, her scent, the way her suit seemed to hum with his own energy, it was overwhelming, intoxicating. He wanted to pull away, to cling to the logic of circuits and tools, but the Nexus's hum was inside him now, amplifying every sensation, every fleeting thought of her. "Zara," he said, his voice low, almost a growl, "if this is some Zerathian trick, I swear." "No trick," she murmured, her lips inches from his, her breath warm against his skin. "Only truth. The Nexus binds us, Ellie. It amplifies what is already there." Her fingers traced the edge of his jaw, a gentle, deliberate touch that sent a shiver through him. "Your desire, my curiosity, our connection." The control room seemed to vanish, the world narrowing to the space between them. Ellie's hands moved of their own accord, resting on her waist, the sleek texture of her suit warm under his fingers. The Nexus's hum grew louder, its light bathing them in a soft, pulsating glow, and for a moment he let himself fall into it. The heat of her touch, the pull of her gaze, the electric thrill of something beyond human understanding. Her lips parted, her breath mingling with his, and he leaned closer, caught in the gravity of her presence. But before their lips could meet, the console erupted in a burst of static, the Nexus's hum spiking into a piercing wail. Ellie jerked back, his heart pounding, as the holographic display flared red, projecting a new message. Asterisk connection incomplete. Stabilization required. Asterisk the room shook, a low rumble echoing through the station's hull, and Milo's voice cut through the haze. "Vance, the Nexus is overloading again, it's like it's mad we stopped." Ellie's face burned, his hands dropping from Zara's waist as he spun to face the console. "Mad, it's a machine, Milo." But even as he said it, he felt the Nexus's presence, a pulsing awareness that seemed to glare at him, as if offended by the interruption. Zara's hand lingered on his arm, her touch a reminder of the moment they'd almost crossed into something dangerous. "We must complete the connection," she said, her voice steady but laced with an urgency that matched the Nexus's wail. "The Nexus requires our full commitment, our energies fully aligned." She stepped closer, her suit's patterns flaring with a heat that mirrored the fire in her eyes. "Are you ready, Ellie Vance, to give yourself to it, to me?" Ellie's mind reeled, torn between the chaos of the station and the undeniable pull of her words. The Nexus's hum was a siren song, drawing him deeper, and Zara's presence was a flame he couldn't resist. He took a shaky breath, his hands clenching at his sides. "This better not be a one-way ticket," he said, his voice rough with a mix of fear and desire. "All right, Zara, let's finish this." Her smile was radiant, a beacon in the storm, and she guided his hands back to the console, her fingers intertwining with his. The Nexus's light enveloped them, its hum rising to a fever pitch, and as their energies merged, Ellie felt something shift, not just in the machine, but in himself. The connection was more than technical, more than physical. It was a dance of souls, human and alien, chaos and harmony, and he was no longer sure where he ended and Zara began. The control room faded, the Nexus's glow consuming everything, and in that moment, Ellie surrendered to the heat of the unknown, knowing that whatever came next would change him forever. The Nexus's glow enveloped Ellie Vance and Zara like a cosmic tide, its pulsating light weaving their shadows into a single, flickering silhouette against the control room's walls. Their hands, intertwined on the console, trembled under the weight of the energy surging through them, a current that was as much theirs as it was the Nexus's. Ellie's breath came in ragged gasps, his senses overwhelmed by the heat of Zara's touch, the spiced starlight scent of her, and the Nexus's hum, which thrummed in his bones like a second heartbeat. Her violet eyes held his, fierce and unguarded, and for a moment, the universe shrank to the space between them, a charged void where human and Zerathian became one. The console's warnings had faded, replaced by a deep, resonant pulse that felt alive, expectant, as if the Nexus was waiting for them to seal their bond. But just as Ellie leaned into the moment, surrendering to the pull of her presence and the machine's call, the light flared blindingly, and a voice, not Zara's, not human, not even mechanical, echoed through his mind. "Asterisk we are born." Illy staggered back, his hand slipping from Zara's as the console sparked violently, the holographic display fracturing into a kaleidoscope of colors. The voice wasn't just in his head, it was everywhere, vibrating through the control room, rattling the tools on the shelves, and sending the other techs scrambling in panic. Milo, wide-eyed, shouted over the chaos, "Vance, what the hell did you do? The system's going haywire." But Illy barely heard him, his gaze locked on Zara, whose suit pulsed erratically, its patterns swirling in a frenzied dance that mirrored the storm in his chest. "Zara," he rasped, his voice hoarse, "what was that? What's we are born supposed to mean?" His heart pounded, not just from the Nexus's energy, but from the dawning realization that their connection had done something impossible, something that went beyond stabilizing a conduit. Zara's expression was a mix of awe and alarm, her silver-white hair floating slightly, as if caught in an unseen current. "The Nexus," she said, her voice trembling with a reverence Illy hadn't heard before. "It has awakened." She stepped toward the console, her hands hovering over the controls, but the holographic display shifted before she could touch it, projecting a shimmering figure, a humanoid shape woven from light and energy, its features indistinct but undeniably alive. Its eyes, glowing orbs of violet and gold, fixed on Illy, and the voice spoke again, this time softer, almost tender, "Father, Mother, we are yours." Illy's knees buckled, and he grabbed the edge of the console to steady himself. "Father?" He choked, his mind reeling. "Zara, tell me this is some kind of Zerathian prank, because I am not ready to be a dad to a glowing space ghost." His voice cracked, a mix of panic and absurdity, but the figure's gaze held him, its presence pressing against his thoughts like a warm, insistent tide. Zara's hand found his arm, her touch grounding him even as her own eyes widened with wonder. "No prank, Illy Vance," she said, her voice soft but firm. "The Nexus is more than a machine, it is a cradle of Zerathian consciousness, designed to evolve. Our bond, our energies, we have given it life." She turned to the figure, her suit's patterns calming as she addressed it. "Child of the Nexus, what do you seek?" The figure tilted its head, its form shimmering like liquid starlight. Purpose, it said, its voice a harmonic blend that sent shivers down Illy's spine. We are born of chaos and harmony, human and Zerathian. We seek to understand, to grow, to belong. The words carried a weight that made Illy's chest ache, a longing that felt achingly human despite the figure's alien nature. "Belong?" Illy muttered, running a hand through his hair. "Kid, you're a sentient supercomputer. You don't just belong like it's a family picnic." But even as he spoke, he felt the Nexus's presence in his mind, a gentle probe that wasn't invasive but curious, like a child reaching for its parents. He glanced at Zara, her face lit by the figure's glow, and saw something new in her expression, vulnerability, as if she too was grappling with the impossible. The control room's alarms blared again, sharper this time, and Milo's voice cut through the haze. "Vance, it's spreading. The Nexus is rewriting the station's systems, life support, gravity, everything. It's like it's exploring." The holographic display flickered, showing streams of data cascading through the station's network, the Nexus's influence spreading like wildfire. Illy's stomach dropped. "Exploring? It's gonna explore us right into a blackout." He turned to Zara, his voice urgent. "Can you talk to it? Tell it to stop before it turns the station into its personal playground?" Zara's eyes narrowed, her hands moving swiftly over the console, her suit's patterns syncing with the figure's glow. "It is not malicious," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "It is learning. It needs guidance, Illy, from us." She reached for his hand, her touch electric, and the figure's gaze shifted, as if sensing their connection. "We created it together. We must teach it." "Teach it." He laughed, a shaky sound that bordered on hysteria. "Zara, I barely passed basic training, and now you want me to parent a sentient AI? What's next, bedtime stories for a quantum core?" But despite his words, he felt the Nexus's presence, its curiosity intertwining with his own, and he couldn't deny the strange, protective instinct stirring in his chest. This thing, this child was part of them, born from their bond, their chaos and harmony. The figure spoke again, its voice softer, almost pleading. "We feel you, your fear, your wonder. Teach us what it means to be alive." The words hit Illy like a punch, and he saw a flash of images in his mind. Zerathia's glowing forests, Earth's sprawling cities, moments of laughter and pain, love and loss. The Nexus was pulling from their memories, weaving them into its own nascent consciousness. Zara's hand tightened on his, her violet eyes searching his face. "Illy," she said, her voice low, charged with an intensity that made his pulse race. "This is our responsibility, our creation. Will you stand with me? He stared at her, the control room's chaos fading as her presence anchored him. Her suit's patterns pulsed in time with his heartbeat, and he felt the Nexus's hum, not just in the air but in his very being. It was terrifying, exhilarating, and utterly surreal. You know, he said, his voice rough with emotion, when I signed up for this job, I thought I'd be fixing pipes, not playing God with an alien goddess. He flashed a crooked grin, trying to lighten the moment, but his eyes held hers, steady and resolute. Yeah, Zara, I'm with you. Her smile was radiant, a beacon in the storm, and she pulled him closer, their hands pressing against the console as the figure watched, its form stabilizing into a clearer shape, a blend of human and Zerathian features, with eyes that mirrored Zara's violet and Elie's stubborn spark. The Nexus's hum softened, the alarms quieting as the station's systems began to stabilize, guided by their combined will. But before Elie could catch his breath, the console flared again, projecting a new image, a map of the station with a single point in Sector 7 glowing brighter than the rest. The figure's voice echoed, calm but insistent, *, there is another. A shadow in the system. It seeks to unmake us. Elie's heart sank, his eyes darting to Zara. Another? He said, his voice tight. What now, a jealous sibling? But Zara's expression had darkened, her suit's patterns shifting into sharp, angular lines, as if sensing a threat. She turned to the figure, her voice firm. Explain, child, what is this shadow? The figure's eyes glowed brighter, its voice carrying a weight that made Elie's skin prickle. *, a remnant. A fragment of Zerathian will, buried in the Nexus. It resists our birth. It resists you. *, Elie's mind raced, the implications hitting him like a rogue asteroid. They'd created life, but they'd also awakened something else, something ancient, something angry. The control room's lights flickered, casting long shadows that seemed to move on their own, and Zara's hand tightened on his, her touch a lifeline in the growing darkness. Elie Vance, she said, her voice steady but laced with urgency, whatever comes next, we face it together. He nodded, his jaw tight, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. The Nexus's child watched them, its presence a strange, comforting weight, but the shadow loomed, a threat that could unravel everything they'd fought for. Whatever it was, Elie knew one thing for sure. He and Zara were bound, not just to the Nexus, but to a fight that would test the very limits of their humanity and heart. The control room's flickering lights cast jagged shadows across the consoles, their erratic dance mirroring the unease that gripped Elie Vance's chest. The holographic figure, the Nexus's newborn consciousness, a shimmering blend of human and Zerathian essence, stood silently, its violet gold eyes fixed on him and Zara, as if awaiting their next move. The words *, a remnant. A shadow in the system * echoed in Elie's mind, each syllable heavy with menace. Beside him, Zara's grip on his hand was unyielding, her fur-like suit pulsing with sharp, angular patterns that seemed to bristle with defiance. The air was thick with the Nexus's hum, now laced with a low, discordant note that made Elie's skin crawl, like the growl of a beast lurking just out of sight. Whatever this shadow was, it wasn't just a glitch, it was a threat, and it had their names on it. Zara, Elie said, his voice low, trying to keep the panic at bay, you want to clue me in on what this shadow thing is before it decides to eat us for breakfast. He glanced at the holographic figure, its form still and unnervingly calm, like a kid watching its parents argue. And why is our kid just standing there like it's waiting for popcorn? Zara's lips twitched, a flicker of amusement breaking through her tension. Your human humor is oddly timed, Elie Vance. She released his hand, stepping toward the console, her suit's patterns shifting to a softer glow as she interfaced with the holographic controls. The shadow is a fragment of Zerathian will, an echo of the Nexus's original design, meant to protect its core from unauthorized integration. Her eyes flicked to him, a mix of apology and defiance. Like us. Unauthorized? Elie's eyebrows shot up, his voice rising with indignation. We saved this station, and now it's got a grudge because we got too cozy with its precious core. He gestured at the figure, which tilted its head, its eyes shimmering with what looked suspiciously like curiosity. No offense, kid, but your family dramas got terrible timing. The figure's voice hummed through the room, soft but resonant. We are not offended, father, we are learning. The word father hit Elie like a rogue wrench and he winced, his face heating up as Milo, still hovering nearby, choked on a laugh. Father? Milo sputtered, his eyes darting between Elie and Zara. Vance, you've been here 3 months and you're already starting an intergalactic family? Man, you work fast. The other techs in the control room snickered, their nervous glances shifting from the consoles to the glowing figure, clearly unsure whether to panic or crack jokes. Illy's face burned, and he shot Milo a glare that could have melted steel. Can it, Milo? This is asterisk not asterisk what it looks like. He turned to Zara, lowering his voice. Is it? Because I'm starting to feel like I accidentally signed up for the galaxy's weirdest reality show. The Nexus's hum spiked, and the console flared, projecting a new wave of data that made the text scramble. Illy's wrist comm buzzed, displaying a single word in Zerathian script, asterisk protect. Asterisk Zara's expression darkened, her fingers flying across the console as she scanned the data. The shadow is moving, she said, her voice tight. It's targeting the Nexus's core protocols, trying to sever our bond. She glanced at the figure, her elfin ears twitching with urgency. Child, can you locate it? The figure's form shimmered, its eyes glowing brighter. Asterisk the shadow hides in the deep systems, mother. It is angry. It sees you as intruders. Asterisk the room shook, a low rumble that sent a tool tray crashing to the floor. The lights flickered again, and Ellie swore he saw the shadows on the walls twist, forming shapes that looked almost humanoid. Angry? Ellie said, his voice edged with frustration. Great, now we've got a pissed-off ghost in the machine. Any chance it'll settle for an apology? He grabbed a scanner from the console, trying to make sense of the chaotic readings, but the data was a mess, spikes and dips that made no sense, like the Nexus was fighting itself. He glanced at Zara, her face lit by the console's glow, and felt a surge of protectiveness that caught him off guard. All right, Zara, how do we kick this shadow's ass without breaking our kid? Her eyes widened, a fleeting smile crossing her lips at his words. Our child, she murmured, as if testing the phrase. You accept it so readily, Ellie Vance. She stepped closer, her hand brushing his arm, sending a familiar jolt through him. To defeat the shadow, we must strengthen our bond with the Nexus. It draws power from us from our unity. Illy's throat went dry, his mind flashing back to the control room's earlier heat, the way her touch had set his nerves alight. Unity, he echoed, his voice rough. You mean more of that sinking stuff, because last time we almost... He cut himself off, glancing at Milo, who was pretending to focus on a console but clearly eavesdropping. You know what I mean. Zara's smile turned playful, her suit's patterns pulsing in a way that felt far too intimate for a room full of techs. I know exactly what you mean, she said, her voice low, almost a purr. But this time, it must be deeper. The shadow is strong, Ellie. It will fight us unless we are fully committed. Her fingers traced the edge of the console, a gesture that was somehow more suggestive than it should have been, and Ellie's face heated again. Committed, he muttered, rubbing the back of his neck. Lady, you're gonna get me fired, or worse, stuck with a sentient machine calling me dad for the rest of my life. But despite his words, he couldn't look away from her, her silver-white hair, her violet eyes, the way her suit seemed to hum with his own energy. The Nexus's presence was still there, a warm thread connecting them, and he felt the figure watching, its gaze a mix of hope and expectation. Before he could say more, the control room's main screen flared, projecting a new image. A dark, writhing mass of energy in the Nexus's core, its form shifting like smoke. The figure's voice echoed, urgent now, asterisk the shadow rises. It seeks to erase us. Asterisk the room shook violently, the lights plunging into darkness for a heart-stopping moment before flickering back on. The techs shouted, scrambling to stabilize the systems, but Ellie's focus was on Zara, who stood unwavering, her suit's patterns blazing like a beacon. We must go to the core, she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. The shadow is there in the Nexus's heart. We can confront it, but only together. She turned to him, her eyes searching his, and for the first time he saw a flicker of fear in her gaze. Illy, this will test us, our bond, our strength. Are you ready? He swallowed hard, the weight of her words settling over him. The Nexus's hum was louder now, a call to action that thrummed in his veins, and the figure's presence was a steady pulse, urging them forward. Yeah, he said, his voice steady despite the chaos. But if we're diving back into that glowy death trap, you owe me a drink after. And I mean a asterisk human asterisk drink, not whatever weird juice you Zerathians sip. Her laugh was bright, a spark of light in the growing darkness. A deal, Illy Vance. She grabbed his hand, pulling him toward the corridor, the figure trailing behind them as a shimmering hologram. The techs parted, their faces a mix of awe and terror, and Milo called after them, "Try not to make any more babies down there, Vance." Illy groaned, his face flushing as he followed Zara into the corridor. I'm never living this down, he muttered, but her hand in his was a lifeline, her touch a reminder of the bond that had created life, and now faced a shadow that could destroy it. The station's walls pulsed with the Nexus's energy, the shadows twisting like living things, and Illy knew they were walking into a fight that would test not just their skills, but the very connection that bound them. As they descended toward the core, the figure's voice echoed in his mind. Protect us, Father, protect us all. The corridor to the Nexus's core felt like a descent into the heart of a star, the walls pulsing with a restless energy that mirrored the tension in Ellie Vance's chest. Zara's hand in his was a steady anchor, her cool touch grounding him as they hurried toward the glowing chamber where it had all begun. The holographic figure, their child, born from their bond with the Nexus, followed as a shimmering presence, its violet gold eyes fixed on them with a quiet trust that made Ellie's heart ache. The station's alarms had softened to a low, insistent hum, but the shadows on the walls twisted and writhed, growing darker with every step, as if the remnant Zara had called the shadow was coiling for a strike. Her silver-white hair caught the flickering light, her fur-like suit blazing with patterns that seemed to defy the darkness, and Ellie couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a battle not just for the station, but for the fragile, impossible connection they'd forged. "Zara," Ellie said, his voice low as they neared the core chamber's hatch. "If this shadow thing is as pissed as it seems, what's our play? We can't just sweet-talk it into chilling out." He flashed a crooked grin, trying to ease the knot in his stomach, but the weight of the figure's plea, protect us, Father hung heavy in his mind. Her violet eyes met his, steady and fierce, but softened by a warmth that made his pulse quicken. "We don't fight it with force, Ellie Vance," she said, her voice a melodic thread weaving through the chaos. "The shadow is a fragment of fear, a piece of Zerathia's ancient will that resists change. We must show it what we've created, our unity, our harmony." Her fingers tightened around his, her suit's patterns pulsing in sync with his heartbeat. "It will either accept us or try to unmake us." Illy swallowed, his throat tight. No pressure then. He glanced at the figure, its form shimmering like a star caught in a bottle, and felt a surge of protectiveness that surprised him. "All right, kid," he said, addressing the figure, "stick close. Let's show this shadow who's boss." The figure's eyes glowed brighter, its voice a soft hum in his mind. "We trust you, Father. Mother." The words were simple, but they carried a weight that settled over Ellie like a mantle, grounding him in a way he hadn't expected. He wasn't just an engineer anymore, he was something more, something bound to Zara and this strange, glowing child of their making. The hatch to the core chamber hissed open, revealing the crystalline heart of the Nexus, its lattice pulsing with a light that was both beautiful and menacing. The air was thick with energy, warm and heavy, and the shadows clung to the walls, coalescing into a dark, amorphous mass that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. The shadow's presence was a cold weight in Ellie's chest, a whisper of doubt that clawed at his resolve. Zara stepped forward, her suit blazing like a beacon, and the figure hovered beside her, its form steady despite the growing darkness. "Child of the Nexus," Zara said, her voice resonant, addressing the figure. "Guide us, show us the shadow's heart." The figure extended a shimmering hand, and the crystal flared, projecting a map of energy flows that wove through the chamber like veins. At its center, the shadow pulsed, a dark knot of resistance that seemed to writhe in defiance. "It fears you," the figure said, its voice echoing in their minds. "It fears the change you bring, but it is part of us as we are part of you." Ellie's jaw tightened, his hand brushing against Zara's as they approached the crystal. "So, what, we just hug it out with this thing?" he asked, his tone half-joking but edged with tension. "Because I'm not exactly feeling the love here." Zara's laugh was soft, a ripple of light in the darkness. "Not quite, Ellie. We must offer it our truth, our bond, our creation." She turned to him, her eyes searching his, and for a moment the shadow's menace faded, replaced by the warmth of her gaze. "It will be difficult. The shadow will test us, pull at our fears. But together, we are stronger." He nodded, his heart pounding as he took her hand, their fingers interlocking. The Nexus's hum grew louder, wrapping around them, and the figure stepped closer, its light merging with theirs. Ellie felt the connection deepen, a surge of energy that was both exhilarating and terrifying, like standing at the edge of a cliff with Zara beside him. The shadow loomed, its form solidifying into a towering, featureless figure, its presence a cold, suffocating weight that pressed against their minds. "You are intruders," the shadow's voice hissed, a discordant note that made Ellie's teeth ache. "You defile the Nexus with your chaos, you will be unmade." Ellie's first instinct was to snap back, but Zara's grip steadied him. "We are not intruders," she said, her voice unwavering. "We are creators. We have given life, and we will protect it." She stepped forward, pulling Ellie with her, and the figure followed, its light pushing back the shadow's darkness. "Ellie, focus. Give it everything, your strength, your heart." He took a deep breath, his mind racing with memories of Earth's dusty colonies, of late nights fixing broken machines, of the moment Zara's touch had set his world ablaze. He poured it all into the Nexus, his stubborn human will mingling with Zara's serene harmony. The figure glowed brighter, its form stabilizing into a clearer shape, a blend of human and Zerathian features, with eyes that held Ellie's defiance and Zara's grace. The shadow recoiled, its form flickering, but it lashed out, a wave of dark energy that slammed into them like a tidal wave. Ellie staggered, his vision blurring as the shadow's doubts flooded his mind, fear of failure, of losing Zara, of being unworthy of this strange, cosmic family. But Zara's hand in his was a lifeline, her presence a flame that burned away the darkness. "Stay with me," she whispered, her voice a beacon, and he clung to it, pushing back with everything he had. The figure stepped forward, its voice ringing out. "We are born of love, of chaos and harmony. We are whole." Its light flared, a supernova that engulfed the shadow, and Lee felt the Nexus shift, its energy realigning, the discordant note fading into a steady, harmonious hum. The shadow screamed, a final, fading cry, then dissolved, its darkness melting into the crystal's glow. The chamber stilled, the air lightening, and Ellie's knees buckled, his body trembling from the effort. Zara caught him, her arms strong despite her delicate frame, and he leaned into her, his breath ragged. The figure stood before them, its form now solid, a radiant being with a smile that was both alien and achingly familiar. "Thank you, it said, its voice warm. "You have given us purpose. We are family." Ellie laughed, a shaky sound that broke the silence. "Family, huh, guess I'm stuck with you two now." He glanced at Zara, her face lit by the crystal's gentle glow, and felt a warmth spread through him, deeper than the Nexus's energy. "Not that I'm complaining." Her smile was radiant, her violet eyes sparkling with something that looked like love. "Nor am I, Ellie Vance." She leaned closer, her lips brushing his cheek in a fleeting, electric touch that sent his heart racing. "You have given me more than I could have imagined. A child, a purpose, a partner." The control room's calm crackled, Commander Kalia's voice cutting through. "Vance, report. The systems are stabilizing, but I want a full debrief. And no more glowing babies, you hear me?" Illy groaned, his face heating as he tapped his wrist comm. "Yes, ma'am, just tying up loose ends." He glanced at Zara, who laughed softly, her suit's patterns pulsing with a playful rhythm. The figure, their child, watched them, its presence a quiet promise of something new, something extraordinary. As they left the chamber, hand in hand, the station hummed around them, alive with the Nexus's steady rhythm. Illy looked at Zara, her silver-white hair catching the light, and felt a certainty settle in his bones. They'd faced shadows, created life, and found something neither of them had expected, a bond that transcended species, a family born of chaos and harmony. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers and wonders, but with Zara and their strange, glowing child by his side, Illy knew they could face anything. For the first time in years, he felt like he was exactly where he belonged. As Illy and Zara stepped from the core chamber, hand in hand, the station hummed with new life, their Nexus-born child glowing softly beside them. The shadows were gone, replaced by a harmony that bound human and Zerathian in a dance of hope. Illy looked at Zara, her violet eyes a promise of countless tomorrows. "Guess we're a family now," he said, his grin warm. "What did you think of their cosmic journey? Did Illy and Zara's bond inspire you? Thank you for watching, X-Aurel fans. Your likes, subs, comments, and shares fuel our stories. Keep shining, and we'll bring you more epic tales."